Hello, ghosts and ghouls. It's me, Sean Creevy, and today is the scariest and my favorite day of the year, Halloween. It is a night of horror, a night where we celebrate all things scary, a night where the dead rise from their graves, werewolves howl at the moon, vampires emerge from their coffins, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Michael Myers search for victims, and jack-o'-lanterns glow in the spooky dark night. And to top it all off, scary stories. On this fantastically frightening Halloween, I have collected some great scary stories for you all. Some of them are old, some new, and some written by me. I hope you enjoy. Oh, and one last thing. Look behind you.
Am I going to be charged with murder? The detective sighed and did not answer. His eyes were tired, haunted. Just help us to get to the bottom of this, he said. Okay, I answered. I'll do my best. I could hear the tremor in my voice. I hadn't stopped shaking since it happened. I had a strong drink to settle my nerves. It hadn't worked. Let's start at the beginning, said the detective. You were having a Halloween party. Yeah, I said. We do it every year. We take turns hosting and the whole block participates. This year was our turn. So you're the one who set up the decorations. Yeah, I said. Oh God, that sounds bad. But it wasn't just me, it was lots of people. I was mostly just supervising. Can you give me a list of those who were involved? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Just give me a second to calm down. I can give you a list. That's okay. We can come back to that. Okay. So who was the one who set up the scarecrow? It was me, I said. But, fuck, I didn't do that. I set up the night before. Someone must have come in during the night and, oh God. The room swayed, and my breath came sharp and fast. My heart ratcheted up its pace to breakneck speed, and darkness began to close in around my vision. Hey, the detective said, just calm down. You're hyperventilating. Take long, calm breaths. I did as he asked. My heart slowed, but the panic remained. Thanks, I said. Do you think you can keep going? He asked. Yeah, I said. Just give me a moment. My body convulsed with tremors, but in a few minutes they had settled down to a mild shaking in my hands. I gulped down a hard knot in my throat. Okay, I said. I'm ready. So, the scarecrow, the detective prompted. The word filled me with dread. The scarecrow, I repeated numbly. It's a Halloween tradition. The neighbors said as much. You destroy it every year? Yeah, I said. Usually it's filled with candy and straw, like a piñata. The kids beat it with sticks and everyone has a good time. I just don't understand, God, why someone would do that. It's too early to speculate, said the detective. Right now we are just gathering the facts. When did you notice that something was wrong? Well, right away I noticed that the scarecrow wasn't coming apart as easily as it should have been, but I just thought I put it together too well. So I grabbed a stick and, yes, I took a swing. The detective leaned forward. And then what happened? My shoulders slumped. My mouth was cottony and dry. And then, I said, the scarecrow began to bleed and there was a pregnant pause. The detective's eyes bored into mine, willing me to continue. He said nothing, and I had to fill the silence. It fell over, I said. The hat came off and we thought it was a body. What happened then? The kids started screaming. One girl started, the Oakley girl, I think, and then they all went off. We and the other parents and I, we pulled them all away. Oh, God. We called the police and, well, that's it. You know the rest. The detective scribbled his last note and closed the full-top notebook he had been writing in. His eyes were hard, dull gray stone, impossible to read. When he spoke again, his words were measured, careful. His voice was soft. "What interests me, Mr. Johnson," he said, "is that you haven't asked about your wife." The question caught me completely off guard. "My wife," I said. "She's out of town. Oh God, she's gonna freak out when she finds out about what happened. She hates the block Halloween party enough as it is." "Your wife is out of town?" prodded the detective. The question poked a fresh wound. "Yes," I said, forgetting my fear in the moment of irritation. She and my son are spending the holiday with her parents in Virginia." "That seems strange," the detective said. "A family spending the holidays apart?" I got the feeling he knew something more than he was letting on. "Have you talked to her?" I said. "I'd like to hear your side." "My wife and I are going through a rough patch right now," I said. "But I don't see why this is relevant." "It's our job to gather all the information," he said. Then we can decide what is and what is not relevant." "Why was your wife not spending the holiday with you?" I sighed. I wasn't proud of it, but I was getting flustered. I could feel the hot blood rising in my face. "We're separated," I said. "Why is that?" "It's personal." "Your wife said it was related to infidelity." "So you have talked to her?" "Yes." "Fine," I said. "You know, I cheated on my wife. I destroyed her family. It's all my fault. Now, I've had a hell of a day, so if you don't mind, can you please tell me what the fuck this has to do with anything?" The detective paused. He spoke softly. "Your wife is in police custody, Mr. Johnson." "What?" "I'm sorry to have to tell you this," he said, "but she has rendered a full confession." "A full confession for what? What the hell are you talking about?" "It happens occasionally in cases of separation," he said. "One party feels the need to punish the other. Fortunately, the children are sometimes used as a tool to that end." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The room swam. Bile rose in my throat. "Oh, God," I gasped. "Oh, God, no." "I'm afraid we have positively identified the remains as belonging to your son. Then," he said. The scream died in my throat. I blacked out.
In October 1976, a deranged killer named Bob Harvey was sentenced to death by the electric chair. His crimes included a long string of horrific murders, the most recent being the Hudson family on Halloween night in 1975, committed with a kitchen knife. In each of his murders, Bob concealed his identity by wearing a Halloween mask as he mercilessly butchered his victims. Before his execution, Bob vowed to return and seek revenge on those who condemned him, but no one believed him. The next day, Bob Harvey was confirmed dead, and his body was transferred to a nearby morgue. 6 years passed in the town of Whale Point Falls, and people soon forgot about the horror that was Bob Harvey. It was Halloween once again, and everyone was excited. Jack-o'-lanterns were placed on doorsteps, their eerie faces glowing in the dark, spooky night. Ghosts and cobwebs hung from trees and wooden railings, while figures of witches, zombies, and skeletons stood beside them in decorative displays, scaring trick-or-treaters who filled the child-crowded streets. But children weren't the only ones roaming the streets. Teenagers were also there, too. With a carton of eggs and a bag of stolen candy, the Austin brothers began vandalizing homes on Howard Street for their cruel amusement. After being chased away by a police car, The two brothers realized their fun was over. With nothing else to do, they grabbed their bikes and headed toward the road leading out of town. After riding for a long time, they became tired and decided to find a place to rest. Walking through the nearby woods with the crisp fall leaves crunching underfoot, the boys eventually discovered an old house secluded in the wilderness. The house looked exactly like a gothic haunted house, the kind their father would have told them about in the scary story when they were little, back when he and their mother were still alive. After standing in front of the house, debating whether they should stay or go somewhere else, the two decided it was a perfect place for a night like Halloween. Breaking the door lock with a large branch, they entered the house, their only light source being a flashlight. The boys smiled at each other, thinking that this would be their best Halloween yet. Once inside, the boys made a small fire in the fireplace and sat down on some old furniture that had been left behind, making themselves comfortable and telling scary stories late into the night. At midnight, a loud bang rang through the house, startling the boys awake. "Who the hell is up there?" demanded Jeff. "Come down and show yourself," cried his brother Mike, his voice trembling and cracking. No response came, only the squeak of a door and the sound of a dresser being shut. Fortunately, the boys knew how to fight. They grabbed the best weapons they could and ascended the stairs. Once at the top, they entered the room where they had heard the noise and began searching. But inside, they found nothing, only an empty room with a bed and a closet. Unbeknownst to the boys, behind the wooden slats of the closet stood a man, an evil man. Suddenly, the closet burst open, and out came a large, dark figure. The man wore a burlap sack over his head, tightened by a rope, with two eye holes to see through. He was dressed in a brown, ragged trench coat and a blue flannel shirt, holding something sharp in his hand. The figure moved towards the boys, backing them into a corner, his feet creaking on the floorboards. "Happy Halloween," said the man, his fingers gripping the blade. He then swung, slashing Jeff across the face, leaving a large gash and spilling trickles of blood on the floor. Mike screamed and fell to the ground. He turned his head back to his bloodied brother, now seeing the weapon in the man's hand was a sickle. Mike ducked and ran, not looking back at the soon-to-be bloody massacre. As he ran down the hall and downstairs to the wooden door that led outside, the sound of something rolling down the stairs stopped him in his tracks. It wasn't a ball that rolled downward, but the bloody head of Jeff. Mike tried to scream, but the gut-wrenching terror of what had just happened stopped him. All he could do was let out small whimpers and cries. Suddenly, Mike was interrupted by heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. He turned around and looked up, and there in the stairwell stood the homicidal maniac, his burlap mask staring back at him, motionless as a scarecrow. The man began to creep down the stairs, his sickle gleaming and casting reflections of light across the wall. Mike tried to escape, but to his horror, the door that led to his freedom was bolted shut from the outside. He turned around, only to see the maniac right before him, his burlap head staring back at him. The man raised the sickle, the stain of red blood still visible on the blade. Mike raised his hands to block the weapon, but a slash of the blade only cut open his hand, severing his fingers in a gory mess. As Mike screamed in pain, the maniac grabbed him by the neck and raised the sickle again, bringing it down upon his head, the blade slicing into his skull. That November, there was no sign of the Austin brothers, and strangely, people began to worry about them so much that the authorities were alerted. A search party was eventually conducted, and it wasn't long before they were found, though not in one piece. The police discovered the boys' decapitated heads crudely carved like jack-o'-lanterns on the front porch of the abandoned house they had stayed in, blood and gore dripping from their hollowed eyes and mouths. Ever since then, the boys' murders have never been truly solved, with the police never finding an answer who committed such a violent and horrendous act. However, what the police don't know is that Bob Harvey survived his execution in 1976 due to the electric chair delivering a lackluster shock. Unbeknownst to the authorities and morticians, they only put him in a small coma while moving his body. He left the morgue that night and used a random cadaver to make it look like he was still dead. For the following years, he'd been living in the woods near that house, wearing a Halloween costume of his own. He had now claimed 2 more lives, adding to the collection of people he had killed and tortured over the last 10 years. Always check your children's Halloween candy. Always. I'm not saying this to fearmonger. To tell you the truth, I realize that most of the candy handed out on the holiday is likely purchased at the Walmart the day before and shoved into a plastic pumpkin-shaped bowl. You probably have realized that, well, most sane people don't poison candy, or put glass in it, or whatever cautionary urban legend you've heard. The only guy who did do that did so to his own son. So those neighbors of yours, don't treat them like criminals. They're just trying to innocently give the kiddos some sweets. This warning regards a phenomenon that has no apparent origin. What I mean to say is, no one is really sure where it comes from. The candy in question isn't even so. You can't purchase it at any stores, and looking it up online results in no results. The candy, this aforementioned phenomenon, appears that to be of a cinnamon jawbreaker, not to be confused with the Atomic Fireball brand or any similar sweet. It may resemble a red-tinted gumball or a red lollipop with no stick. The point being, it's rather generic in appearance, which makes it tricky to spot the real deal. The candy is sometimes branded under the H.H. Sweets Company, a corporation that doesn't exist, at least one not registered by any agency since 1999. If you search the internet, you might find some H.H. Sweets businesses, but I assure you, they aren't the real deal, merely a namesake coincidence. If the label carries the H.H. name, beneath the tagline will read something to the effect of, "Hot as hell, sweet as heaven." Not all the candies sport the branding, but it certainly helps to spot it. This is why I advise, if you ever find yourself, or your kids, with an unmarked red candy, the safest bet is to throw the sucker away. Documentation of the phenomenon only dates back to 2007, but there is a possibility that it's gone on for far longer. As of this recording, a known 9 people have ingested the candy, 4 of which being children under the age of 18. Each case has happened on October 31st, with most cases occurring during 2016, with a total of 3 victims. The only clues as to the candy's appearance and branding is through the eyes of witnesses and subsequent investigations of any nearby and open candy wrappers. Each of the victims' corpses, aside from their heads, remain untouched. Their heads, however, are where things get strange. Each of the heads is completely burnt, like a used match. This would make identification of victims troublesome, except for the fact that their fingerprint analysis lent itself fittingly to the nature of these deaths, considering the hands of the deceased were completely intact. None of these victims were related in any way, with the only exception being a father and his 9-year-old daughter, Andy and Mary Kay Winfield from Lexington, Virginia. All the others share no relation, other than the aforementioned candy. An eyewitness report from Brevard, North Carolina, documented the full story behind the mysterious death of a 12-year-old boy, Shane Davis, who died on the night of Halloween 2009. I was leaving the pharmacy around 8:30 when it happened. He, Davis, was walking down the block in a zombie costume. I didn't even notice him at first because it was dark, and the costume was dark. But then there was this flash of orange light, like someone lighting a candle. I turned around and this hit wave hit me in the face, and the smell, oh God, it smelled like cooked meat. His head was on fire. There were people screaming, but there was nothing we could do. He screamed only for a moment, and then he hit the pavement. I'll never unsee it. There were rumors it was a hex from a witch or something. I'm no superstitious man, but When you see something like that, superstition doesn't seem too far off, you know? Similar reports were documented for many other victims. Shortly after ingesting the candy, the victim's head would burst into flames, and soon thereafter the victim would succumb to the injury and die. Many rumors and theories have, since, popped up surrounding the deaths and candy. Many include witches and spells, but some have garnered significant following beyond regional folklore. One of the most popular rumors cites the deaths as a result of the 1782 execution of Henry Hyson Cassidy, H.H. Cassidy, a candy maker from Maniac, Virginia, the site of the first documented death from 2007. Cassidy, a local candy maker, was placed on trial for the disappearances of two young girls from the neighboring town. Despite having no apparent motive for abducting the two girls, the candy maker was charged as a reasonable suspect, having access to sweets for alluring the children. Following a local investigation where one of the girls' bodies was discovered with candy in her pocket, Cassidy was charged with the murders and sentenced to death. Children from the town, who once loved the sweets made by the candy maker, began calling Cassidy the Witch of Maniac, making him one of the most earliest male witches of legend. Being found guilty in a hasty trial, Cassidy was sentenced to death by molten metal, a process considered barbaric, except in the case of an accused witch. Cassidy, who swore his innocence until his death, had a molten metal ball dropped into his throat. While a quick death, it certainly was not painless. The townsfolk remarked that justice was served on that day, and the body was buried in a shallow grave. Given that Andy and Mary Kay Winfield were also from Virginia, many speculate that the spirit of Cassidy returned to punish those responsible for his death, using his signature candy as a way to torment the descendants of his accusers. The name, too, H.H. Cassidy, would explain the name on the wrappers, H.H. Sweets. Another popular theory is usually referred to as the jack-o'-lantern story. Based on the Irish myth, the story goes that a man known as Stingy Jack tricked the devil on multiple occasions, resulting in his banishment from hell as well as heaven, as he was a trickster at heart. The man, forced to roam the earth, lit coal with a turnip, and has been using it ever since to light his eternal path. The story, clearly rooted in the Halloween tradition of carving jack-o'-lanterns, has been used to explain the candy too. Stingy Jack, as he's referred, seeks souls out to join him in his eternal punishment. The candy, which burns the heads of its consumers, turns them into somewhat of a crude jack-o'-lantern. This would explain the fiery demise of the victims, as well as its connection to the celebration of Halloween. In conjunction with the Stingy Jack narrative, there are some who conclude that the candy is the work of the devil himself, tormenting unsuspecting holiday celebrators for death merely for the fun of it. A rather sick trick, yes, but then again, mischief is a commonplace in the celebration of Halloween. As for this theory, the HH label would stand for Hell's Hottest or some variation of the Hell alliteration. Despite these varying backstories to the candy, there is a far more grounded explanation that many have subscribed to. Rather than reading into H.H. Sweets' mythology, some conclude that the H.H. Sweets is precisely what it claims to be, a candy company. The motive for committing these crimes is, at large, still a mystery, but this theory cuts out the claims of ghosts and devils, suggesting that instead that a select few sickos have the willpower to conjure up sweets with the intent to kill. In the end, no theory is correct, at least not one confirmed by any traditional means. A candy that is, for the lack of a better term, supernatural, can only be explained by the supernatural, making it extremely difficult to verify any information regarding it. If you wish to avoid the grisly results of the candy, it is advised to always check your children's Halloween candy. Better yet, avoid the trick-or-treating tradition altogether. Or, if you're highly concerned, Perhaps it's best to simply skip Halloween altogether. I was a weird kid. When I say this, I'm not asking for sympathy, but humbling myself. I look back and cringe at some of the things I did, but I also long for that innocence. I wasn't a depressed goth or a furry, just a kid who liked things most kids didn't. While the other boys in town were busy with football or baseball, I was writing stories and drawing. From the time I was little until that fateful day, I loved storytelling, whether through movies or books. All of it was tied to one thing: horror. I loved horror. Ever since my first Halloween, I couldn't pull my mind away from it. I remember my parents walking me down the street on All Hallows Eve, pointing out the frightening decor as I went door to door. Ghosts, zombies, vampires, jack-o'-lanterns glowing in the night. I remember wandering into Walgreens during the season, staring at the creepy Halloween masks on display. My fascination grew even more when I discovered icons like Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, and Ghostface. After my first trip to Spirit Halloween, I wanted to make a display of my own. During Christmas, I asked Santa for a new animatronic every year. Before long, my lawn was packed with handmade gravestones, an animatronic Jason, the Barnyard Butcher, and little Skelly Bones, just to name a few. By age 10, I was finally allowed to watch all the horror movies I wanted. Every night I put on a new one, sometimes classics like Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Creepshow. Other times hidden gems like Dead and Buried or The Burning. Horror and Halloween were everything to me, but alongside that, my family, friends, and faith were the most important. Even while I watched gory slashers, I wanted to be kind, to be a good kid. I tried to hold on to my innocence, avoiding the temptations that came later when growing up. But by high school, that promise began to crack. "What do you mean you're not going trick-or-treating?" I asked my friends Connor and Jeremy. "Dude, you need to grow up. It's not fun anymore," Connor replied. "Come to Lenny's Halloween party. It's way more fun." "Oh yeah? Sitting in a basement with a bunch of kids vaping and drinking is fun? That's not Halloween. You don't get it." "Bro, getting with girls is better than getting candy," Jeremy said, backing Connor up. "It's just not the same." "It's not the same" echoed in my head for the rest of the day. They were right. It wasn't. And I was getting older. I was, embarrassingly, a sophomore. Halloween, next to Christmas, was my favorite day of the year. It was the day I dressed in my ghoulish costume of choice, walked the neighborhood admiring decorations, including my own, and earned the sweet reward of Hershey bars, Sour Patch Kids, Airheads, and Swedish Fish. I couldn't just throw Halloween away because my friends wanted to. The night before Halloween, I sat outside checking my decorations. My mom tapped me on the shoulder, making me jump. "Everything looks great, sweetie," she said with a smile. I stood and kissed her. "It wouldn't look this good without your help." We went inside, but she stopped me, noticing my gloomy face. "What's wrong, sweetie?" she asked. "It's nothing. Why should I be upset? It's almost Halloween." "I know when something's wrong. Just tell me." I sighed. "It's just that life's moving so fast. Connor and Jeremy don't care about Halloween anymore. They're going to some dumb party. Every day I get older, but I just want to stay in the past. When I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was grow up. I regret it now. I just want to be a kid again. Life was simpler." My mother hugged me. "I know, sweetie. I wish the same too. Everybody does. That's what makes you special. You still have that kid in you." I smiled, grateful for her love. I didn't know what I'd do without her. "But why don't you go with your friends? I understand you want Halloween the way it's always been, but why not go?" I nodded, understanding her point. "I know, but Halloween is my day. All this means everything to me. I don't want to waste it with a bunch of drunk kids. Her eyes softened. Come on, let's watch Halloween. It's tradition. I smiled and went to the kitchen to make popcorn. I came back just as John Carpenter's score began. The glowing jack-o'-lantern filled the screen. We watched Michael Myers' massacre unfold, and by the time it ended, midnight had struck. Halloween was here. That afternoon, I dressed in my usual persona, Jason Voorhees. Hockey mask on, machete in hand, it was my classic Halloween costume. Stepping outside, I noticed a family beginning their trick-or-treating. They stopped on the sidewalk to admire my display. My lawn was a chaotic mix of killers and monsters, zombies and skeletons clawing from their graves, a vampire with blood dripping down his chin, and the infamous figures of Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason set front and center for all to see. What a wonderful display, said the father, his wife standing beside him. Thank you. I do it for you guys, I said with a chuckle. Here you go. Take 3. I held out the candy bowl for their little kids, who looked about kindergarten age. As I had for years, I roamed the neighborhood house to house, filling my sack with candy. Younger kids often stopped to stare at me, my size making me look like the real Jason. Sometimes I turned my back, then whip around, locking eyes with them before charging forward. Their screams echoed down the street. By 9:30, my sack was heavy with candy, plenty of full-size candy bars mixed in. It was Friday, so I could stay out later. With the bag slung across my back and the plastic bloody machete in my hand, I headed across town. Following the train tracks, I made my way toward the forest. My small town was surrounded by farmland and woods, and under the bright moon and chilly air, the setting felt perfect. I walked past empty pastures, the sound of crickets filling the night. After a while, I stumbled across an old pumpkin patch. In the lonely field sat rows of pumpkins, with corn stalks and hay bales scattered around. At the center stood a scarecrow, its body clothed in torn overalls, its head a jack-o'-lantern carved into a sinister grin. I sat down on a hay bale, unwrapped a Hershey bar, and snapped off a piece to eat. As I ate, memories of childhood Halloweens flooded back. I remember going every year to Gobert's Farm, a roadside pumpkin patch with not only pumpkins, but a haunted house, all handmade, from the animatronics to the painted walls. I remembered begging my mom every day to play the Crumpkins Pumpkins sing-along video on her computer, a Curtis Amusements presentation of sinister jack-o'-lanterns chanting about their home, the Crumpkins Pumpkins Patch. It was said to be a small pumpkin patch, reached by walking down a desolate gravel road, past cornfields and pastures, and through the woods. Nostalgia overwhelmed me, and like times before, I wished I could be a kid again. Life was simpler, innocent, a time when nothing could go wrong. In that moment, I spoke to the one who always listened, who knew everything and understood suffering. Lord Jesus, Son of God, my Lord and my Savior, I'm grateful for my life, and I'm sorry for all my sins. Halloween has been my favorite holiday since I was born, but I feel it slipping away. This may be my last Halloween, the last time I ever go trick-or-treating. I miss it so much. I just want to be a kid again. I beg you, Lord, if it's your will, let me have one more day. Just one more Halloween like it used to be. Amen. Jesus, what a guy, a voice said behind me. I spun around. Standing before me was a figure in a black withered cloak. He was slightly taller than me, yet he felt like a giant. Inside the cloak was a skeleton, bones, ribcage, and skull. In his skeletal hand was a scythe, its blade gleaming in the moonlight. His skull, teeth perfect and eyes sockets empty voids, seemed to pierce right through me. Though he had no muscles to form one, I could swear he was smiling. It was the Grim Reaper. Jesus was a good guy. I was there when they crucified him. They whipped him badly, blood and scars all over his body. Nails were driven into his wrists. Imagine the pain of that. Yikes. I froze, eyes wide. I didn't know what to do. Besides the pain and lacerations, he couldn't breathe. The position he was in, carrying the sins of the world, weighed on him like a rock. He had to lift himself up just to inhale. It was a shame I had to do my duty, but he did rise from the grave, so I guess everyone was happy. You're, I stammered. Yes, I know. The Grim Reaper, or Death, either works. Though his appearance was terrifying, his voice wasn't. I expected a cold, raspy tone, but this Reaper sounded like an average 30-year-old man. Well, though Jesus suffered, there are worse deaths. The Nazis, cruelest of the bunch, they would take women, men, children, the disabled, and gas them. All of them in one small room. Most thought they were getting a shower. What they got was me. Yeah, we learned that in school. It's horrible, I said shakily. I know, death isn't pretty, but it is necessary. You wouldn't want to live forever. You get tired, maybe put a gun in your mouth. Though it wouldn't work. You'd be stuck living with yourself, drooling blood with a hole in the back of your throat. The Reaper scoffed, almost amused. The truth is, most bad things happen because of us. You know free will, right? I nodded. Sometimes it's natural, floods, volcanoes, but mostly it's our doing. People kill others. They sell and take drugs, rob stores, just terrible choices. One of the worst calls I get is when those junky parents are so high they forget to feed their kids, or when babies mistake their stash for candy. Very sad days indeed. I understand, but what do you want from me? I asked. Well, I heard you praying. You and I have something in common. Halloween is your favorite day, right? My eyes widened. How did he know? Well, it's my favorite too. Halloween is my night. The night the living dead rise. A night for ghosts and ghouls. For the macabre and the terrifying. A night to celebrate all things that can kill us or terrify us. Real or imagined. A night of death. And I want to give that night to you. You said you wanted to go back, right? One last Halloween. I hesitated, staring into his empty sockets. Was he with the devil or God? Could I trust him? I'll make you a deal. I have this coin. Pick a side, heads or tails. If it lands on your choice, you get one last Halloween. If not, you don't. I stared at the coin, thinking of all the moments that led me here. It's fate and chance, Sean. Just like the kids say this time of year. Trick or treat. You get candy, or you don't. I had to make a choice. I could risk my time here, or go back to the place I always wanted to go. I took a deep breath. Heads. The Reaper nodded, and with a flick of his wrist, the coin fell into his palm. He opened it. The coin showed the illustration of a skull. Well done, the Grim Reaper said. Suddenly, in a blink of an eye, he disappeared. I sat down on one of the hay bales in disbelief. Was I dreaming? If I wasn't, then it had just been revealed to me that the supernatural existed. Just then, my head began to hurt, like a pressure behind my eyes. I rubbed my forehead and tried to stand, but my legs felt heavy. A few seconds later, I began to sweat. Oh God, what's happening? I whimpered. I fell to the ground, my head a few feet away from my bag of candy. My eyes lost their strength to stay open, and just like that, I passed out. Before I did, I muttered a few words, drool seeping from my mouth. God, if I messed up, I'm sorry. I woke up to the morning sun, lying in the grass. As I stood up, I realized I was still dressed in my Jason costume. Looking around, I saw I was still in the pumpkin patch. I stumbled a little, trying to take notice of my surroundings. The pumpkin sat quietly, the scarecrow watching over them as if they were his children. I started walking, retracing the way I came. After about an hour, I finally made it back to town. I stuffed my hockey mask and the rest of my costume into the candy bag and sat down at the bus stop bench. It was an average day with nobody really around. I took out my phone and tried to call my mom, but it was dead. I sat there, looking around cautiously, hoping no one thought I was a homeless drug addict. The Halloween decorations were still up, looking as if they had just been placed. Near the bus stop, I noticed I was right next to my old school, Ebinger Elementary, a place I passed regularly. Just then, out from the playground and soccer field came a flood of kindergarteners. To my confusion, all of them were wearing costumes. Clowns, witches, zombies, ghosts, every sort you can think of. I turned my eyes towards the Ebinger sign. That's when I saw it. Happy Halloween, Eagles. 10/31/18. Last I checked, it was 2025, not 2018. I then remembered the Grim Reaper's words, "Don't you want one last Halloween?" I was back in time. In shock at realizing my situation, I stumbled across town. I began to notice the stores that weren't there anymore, things I had long forgotten about. There was the old Wendy's, where my grandmother would take me and my brother Ryan for Frosties, and the self-serve ice cream shop, where I'd bury my cup under a mountain of sprinkles. I passed houses that once stood in the neighborhood before they were torn down, and the old playground at the park, its structure made of rusty metal instead of the cheap plastic that came later. I was in disbelief. I didn't know how to feel. It was a mix between happiness and terror. This wasn't meant to be. The day soon turned to dusk, trick-or-treaters filling the streets. I quickly slipped back into my Jason costume and joined the crowd. With a new bag, since my other was already full, I went house to house, gathering plenty of sweets to add to my growing stash. It was Halloween as I'd always remembered it. The chill in the air, the crisp brown leaves, the glowing jack-o'-lanterns on front porches, and decorations everywhere. I had a new full bag of candy and was full of glee. Everything felt different. I felt so much younger, like when I was 7. I turned the corner and saw families walking down the sidewalks. That's when I saw it. It was me, 7 years old, in a skeleton costume. My mom was right next to me, holding my hand, dressed in a warm brown sweater. I watched my younger self skip down the road, my mom guiding me so I wouldn't run into the street. Mommy, look at all the candy I have." "I know, sweetie, but remember the candy tax. I get to have some too." I wanted to stop them, to run over to my mom and my younger self, to tell them how much I loved them, to tell myself to avoid the mistakes I'd made. But I didn't. It wasn't right. I couldn't change the past. Tears welled up as they walked away into the crowd of townsfolk that night. By 10, curfew had arrived and most people had gone home. House lights turned off one by one, the wind smothering candles inside jack-o'-lanterns. I was alone, cold, confused, and afraid. Where was I to go? I wandered the empty streets, rubbing my shoulders to stay warm, and ended up at the local park. I sat on a swing. Lord Jesus, I know I wanted this, but I gotta go home now. Oh, please, God, help me. As I swung slowly, something moved behind one of the nearby oak trees. It poked its head out for a second, then retracted. I was being watched. The thing slipped out from behind the trunk and walked toward me. "Hello?" I said, voice shaky. Then it was close enough to make me scream. It looked like a man. Its skin was green and rotten. It wore a black suit covered in moss. It had no face, only a hideous skull staring back. It was a zombie. I ran, breathless, out into the desolate street near the park. The corpse lumbered after me, moaning and gargling. Then I heard the same sound behind me. I turned to see at least 10 other figures slowly approaching. The living dead. I ran like never before. Down another street, more zombies appeared, skin putrid, blood oozing from their mouths. One had its stomach open, with its intestines dragging the ground. Another had an eyeball hanging from its cheek. They were in different stages of decay. Some looked freshly dug up. Others looked like they had been buried for centuries. They clawed out of their graves as I passed. I sprinted to the train tracks that led to the forest. After a long run, I finally reached safety. Back at the pumpkin patch, I collapsed beside the scarecrow and its little pumpkins, my heart pounding. "Out of breath, huh?" a voice said behind me. It was the Reaper. "That's another way of dying. A heart attack. Very popular this time of year. So many people are eating themselves to death." "Please help me. I need to go back. I'll do anything," I begged. The Reaper paused and opened his palm. The coin was there. "Heads or tails?" he asked. I knelt, knowing the risk. It was my only way home. Tails. The coin flipped. The Reaper opened his hand. I'd prayed I'd chosen right. It was fate and chance. The coin showed the illustration of a skull. It was heads. The Reaper met my eyes, his sockets black and empty. Happens to the best of us. "No, no, please, no! I have a family, a loving mother, father, brother. I have friends. I have so much, please! Have mercy," I pleaded. "Life isn't fair, Sean," the Reaper said flatly. "Death isn't fair. People who haven't done anything wrong die. It's the way of things. Fate and chance, Sean. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Just like they say, trick or treat." He rose, scythe in his bony hand. "I'm sorry, buddy. Happy Halloween." Then, as before, he vanished. I looked around frantically, knowing my fate. From the woods came the moans of the dead. I fell to my knees and cried. My wish had been too good to be true. A tide of fog rolled in from the forest, swallowing me whole as the sounds of the zombies crept closer and closer. They were only seconds away. Those were the final sounds I ever heard on my last Halloween.